Hello and welcome to the Innovating in Smart Cities Mobility session. My name is Andrew Cockburn. I'm the Head of Global Business Growth at the Connected Places Catapult. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the organisers of the Kyoto Smart Cities Expo 2020, and a special thank you to the audience for taking the time to listen to this presentation. The Connected Places Catapult accelerates smarter living and travelling in and between the places of tomorrow, and we focus on growing businesses around the world with innovations in mobility services and a built environment that enable new levels of physical, digital, and social connectedness. The Catapults are a family of innovation centres and centres of excellence in the UK. They're sector specific, and they're focused on supporting their sectors move into the really interesting and exciting tomorrow. They look at bringing together academia, small business, big business, local government, national government, and really tackling those challenging problems and really unlocking the potential in their sectors. The Connected Places Catapult is the most active catapult globally. We have run multiple projects on multiple continents. We've covered all various levels of the smart cities, mobility, and urban innovation agenda. We've worked with national governments on standards and policies to unlock the exciting innovations in these sector areas. We've worked with regions and with cities to put together really interesting innovation ecosystems that really deliver strong outputs and support the really exciting smart cities and mobility ecosystems within those regions and cities. We've created interesting programs, partnerships across continents, across countries, across nations, and delivered multiple exciting projects that really demonstrated the UK's capabilities in partnering and delivering on these services across the world. Smart cities is a really interesting space, and it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. In many cases around the world, a smart city will be a city with sensors on lampposts that can look at the pollution levels, that can look at people and traffic levels. But really, when the Connected Places Catapult looks at the smart cities space, we really see it almost as a technology stack here. We see the underpinning data policy and strategies that's essential, as data is the driving force of the smart city, of the mobility, and of the urban innovation ecosystem. And we look at the various layers that sit on top of that really all of them need to be looked at and approached in a holistic manner in order to really unlock the potential of the smart cities, the mobility, and the urban innovation ecosystem. But it's not just all about technology. It's not just technology-centric. We are citizen and civilian-centric in design and in methodology and approach, as much of our work concerns the actual application and reception of things. We work with the people that will be engaging with and benefiting from smart cities mobility services. We really understand and make those connections between the people of the city and the city. And we do a lot of work in the area of capacity building to really enable city leaders, be it procurement, be it strategy, to really engage with this really exciting innovations in these sectors. COVID is a really challenging time. There's a lot of difficult things happening around the world just now, but it's also a time of opportunity in all of these sorts of times. So we've done a lot of analysis in terms of the city space. We've looked at the COVID challenges, and a lot of our analysis has pointed at three really interesting things. Three areas we've been working on for a long time: the agile city, the digital city, and the net zero city. We've been trying to push forward the envelope. We've been trying to use UK capabilities and expertise to partner with cities around the world, with governments around the world, to help develop the agile city, the digital city, the net zero city, because we understand the benefits, we understand the challenges, we understand all of the things that go into really helping these cities achieve these three areas. Initially, pre-COVID, there was several barriers in the smart cities market. I mean, there was a lack of buyer confidence in technology. A lot of cities, city leaders, local governments, even national governments were very cautious in engaging with the innovation ecosystem, really cautious of taking risks, because ultimately moving into the future and engaging with these innovations involves an element of risk. And a large part of the Catapult's remit is to de-risk engaging with the innovation ecosystems in mobility, smart cities, and urban innovation. So again, you've got the fragmentation and silos of services and assets, poor market coordination we found, rigid regulatory environments. I mean, working in exciting areas like drones, especially beyond line of sight, requires a lot of work in the regulatory environments and sandboxing and test bedding, especially when it comes to connected autonomous vehicles and understanding how those policies can be put in place by the city and the government to unlock the potential of these exciting innovations. And you have privacy and security concerns by the users of services, and you've got a disconnect between supply and demand. You have city spaces dominated by large corporates where there's little space for innovative small companies to grow and secure those contracts with the city and really grow, because we believe in a sustainable city is a city that can open up opportunities, business opportunities for the innovators, startups and SMEs within that city, which creates the jobs and the businesses for the future with the right skills. Post-COVID barriers that have been transformed here. So we now see an increasing reliance on technology. We see increased data sharing to compensate for service changes. Poor market coordination has been increased massively. There is a bigger appetite to get things done, to see results, not just to talk about things. And we're seeing that across the globe just now. We're seeing a huge flexibility in regulatory environment as people are willing to engage with these interesting innovations if they can provide potential solutions in these challenging times. And lack of evidence in business cases, an increased willingness to share data for the greater good. No longer are people holding on to data as a really, really valuable resource that they don't yet know how to monetize or to deploy on their business. People are more willing to collaborate, and we're finding that across the globe with the projects that we run or we're part of. And then the disconnect between the supply and demand. As I said, we see things moving much faster, people willing to connect and take risks to test bed, to look at the proof of concepts. And this is a really exciting time. So I'm going to look at a couple of different levels of how the Catapult works, just to highlight different areas of the smart cities mobility piece, just to give a flavor of some of the opportunities out there, to give a flavor of really some of the things that are being worked on. So the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Parks, everybody knows about the Olympics that happened in the UK. Really interesting time where the UK government mandated that the Olympics be deployed in a very deprived place of London called Stratford. They wanted all this big money spent to be put in and to really benefit society, to really bring up this level of the city that historically had had many challenges. And so the Connected Places Catapult was involved in the pre-Olympics work, where kind of looking at how things are, the delivery of the Olympic stuff and looking at the innovation, the smart cities, the mobility pieces, and also the post, so what happens after? Were things really created? Was there benefit given to the society, the community from all the spend in the Olympic stuff? It's a really exciting time. And I'll just give one little example, because a lot of people, when they work with us, they look at us to provide mature solutions. We're a smart city. We want a smart city parking app. We're a smart city. We want smart lighting. But the smart cities and the mobility space is equally all about solving challenges. And an area the Catapult works in is solving challenges in the urban space. So this example was large development in Queen Elizabeth Park. And during the development, a bat colony was found. And bats, there's very strong conservation laws in the UK. So this was a problem, and construction had to stop on a multi-billion-pound project. And so being the innovation partner here, being the Smart Cities Mobility kind of centre of excellence, we were given this challenge. How could innovation be deployed to continue this project, but also protect the bats? And so this is a snapshot of our IoT dashboard that we developed for the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. And what we did, we developed a set of sensors that allowed us to continually monitor and also do some predictive work around the bats. And therefore, we were able to demonstrate that as construction restarted and continued, the bats were left unharmed and uninterrupted by the work, and they were able to be worked around and worked with. There's a really interesting example, I find, of how people working in the smart city space can be given challenges and can solve the challenges. It's not all just about trying to find a smart solution that's already mature and plugging it in. Another example of stuff that we're doing just now, just to give you a flavor, goes down really to the small company space. So looking at King's Cross and the UK company called OpenSpace, a company that was looking at transport modeling and some really interesting stuff. We're looking at the digital twin, and the digital twin is really hot property in the smart city space, because digital twin of all different scales, be it small, everything from the room up to the building, up to the city, up to the nation. Smart cities and digital twins are a really interesting space, and the UK has some really interesting capabilities in this area. So working with open space, we worked with King's Cross Station. Now this station is over 100 years old. So it's one of the UK underground system in London is the oldest underground system in the world, and it was never designed to carry the capacity of people that it does. And the way London's been built, there's limited space for it to be made bigger. So really it's all about optimizing a transport asset, a mobility hub here. And so how can we apply innovation and technology to allow the people running King's Cross to do that without closing it down and causing disruptions? So digital twin was built out, and the digital twin we built out with open space allowed for the integration of all sorts of data sets. And then that leads on to the possibility of really doing modeling in terms of how to get best asset utility value. It also allows you to start doing predictive work to look at modeling challenging situations or problems, or how to manage peak times and get people flow in a safe and secure manner. And then when COVID came along, we were able to help them pivot to look at pandemic modeling. How could you operate such a busy transport hub in a socially safe manner in the COVID time? So that's an example of some of the really interesting things that are happening at a low level. And before I move on to the bigger piece that I want to talk about today, I want to talk a little bit about machine learning and artificial intelligence, primarily because this is really underpinning technology and area that really drives a lot of work in the space of mobility and smart cities and urban innovation today. And the UK has some really, really interesting capabilities, really world-leading capabilities in many of these areas. And I really like this project. You'll notice at the bottom left, Nissan was a key partner with us. And so we were challenged to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to develop a natural human-like vehicle control, because two of the things that really hold back the connected autonomous vehicle space, one is obviously liability and the legal side of things, and the other side is the human factor. A lot of connected and autonomous vehicle work to date is very much based on computer programs, on sensors, and it's about computer learning, which is fine. But what we're interested in is simulating human-like reactions and learning to the environment around you. And this was a really interesting challenge put forward, where the project, which was actually led by Nissan and supported by Hitachi, it was based around taking a car, driving it from our offices in Milton Keynes all the way up to Sunderland, the Nissan production plant, one of the top Nissan production plants in the world. And that would take it through urban environments, various traffic environments, the countryside. And it would not only be able to do this without a driver, but it would be able to learn from the environment and react to the environment, the weather conditions, the traffic conditions. It's a really, really exciting project. And why is this being done? It's really looking at pushing forward the UK government's commitment to getting autonomous and connected vehicles on the road by 2023. So ambitious target, a lot to be done. And this was very much a proof of concept, proving that it can be done, gaining the trust in society that these cars could be on the road, they could be safe, and they could deliver on the promise. So using machine learning, using artificial intelligence, this project was obviously a lengthy one, just under 3 years in length, a really interesting range of partners, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. And you can see the Human Drive website at the bottom right, www.humandrive.co.uk. And there's a lot of information on it. There's a lot of reports, there's a lot of analysis, videos. I really encourage you, if you have an interest in connected autonomous vehicles, to go to this website. There's a wealth of information, and it's a fantastic example of Japanese and UK collaboration in a really exciting and cutting edge area of technology innovation in the mobility space. Quickly moving on, just to give a quick little bit of flavor, this is not about the Connected Places Catapult going and doing stuff. We're a collaborative institution that is set up to support and partner. We are a non-for-profit organization, and we're mandated not to compete with industry. We're there to support the ecosystem and the sector in terms of these three main areas I keep coming back to: smart cities, mobility, and urban innovation. And so we do a lot of connecting the market. We do a lot of capacity building and technology building of companies, collaboration opportunities. We work with the end users to open up the possibilities for companies and innovators to collaborate and work. And by this, I don't just mean UK innovators and collaborators. Globally, we work with companies, with governments, and all sorts of organizations from all around the world, including academia and university. We do a lot of work in terms of commercializing research and development and really realizing on the promise of really smart, intelligent things coming out of universities. And then we run multiple accelerator programs. We have 5G mobility accelerators. We've got clean air IoT tech accelerators. And we've got a really interesting intelligent mobility accelerator that's been running for many years in partnership with Wayra and Telefonica. And just a few facts and stats on your screen about it. But it's had a really interesting output of companies that have moved on to be really successful commercial entities. And then the last piece I would put on here before I dive into the main bit I'm going to talk about is we're the innovation laboratory for the Department for Transport in the UK. So we do a lot of work around regulations, standards, and really how to unlock the potential in the mobility space, from everything from electric vehicle infrastructure, what is required to unlock the potential of electric vehicles. It's not just providing cheap electric cars. From how do you get into unmanned aerial vehicles in the sky? How do you get the legislation around beyond line of sight drones, etc., etc. So we do lots of interesting work, and I would encourage you to have a look at our website, and you can see a lot of the stuff we've done in this area. So what I really want to talk about today is really ambitious project we're running, and it covers Africa. Now, we work very much in the city space. Why do we work in the city space? Probably most money is spent in most countries around the world in the public sector. And most of that money is spent in the urban environment, in the city space, because that's where most people live, that's where most services are delivered. So this is a really interesting space that is open for innovation, because good innovation in the areas that we cover, it just has so many potential positive benefits to society, to the city, to the people, to the business, to the academia. So the city space is our key sweet spot that we look at. Now, one large problem you have around the world is many companies, many bits of industry and government, they tend to look at the world country by country. So a target market might be Japan. A target country might be the UK. Okay, that's fine. These are large countries. There are many cities, and there's a really interesting geography. I mean, if you look at Japan, Tokyo is different from Kyoto, is different from Kobe, is different from Fukuoka, is different from Hokkaido. How do you actually understand the opportunity? How do you understand the city? How do you understand the innovation space? And how do you understand where there are opportunities to really push forward the innovation agenda, especially in the area of smart cities and mobility, and where are they not? How can you make an objective, data-driven analysis that really supports objective decision-making? It is very hard to compare cities. It is very hard to drill down into the city level in a really objective manner. And so we found this from years of working in this space. And so ultimately we built our own tool to do this. It's a really interesting piece of data analytics with a little bit of AI behind it. And it's called the City Topology Index. Now, the City Topology Index, it allows us to look at cities, compare cities, contrast cities, look at opportunities in cities, and equally look at where the opportunities are not in cities. And a lot of this work helps us work with cities so they can understand themselves, and they can understand where they can probably make the biggest and most positive impacts with interventions in the smart cities, mobility, and soon to be net zero space as they look to take on many of the challenges faced by cities today. So the City Topology Index is currently filled with 500 cities, although any city in theory can be loaded into it, and many are being loaded in regular intervals. It's cut across 65 indicators and 175,000 data points, because it is a real data-driven objective tool. Now, it's not a holistic view of what a city is. As I keep saying, it looks at the innovation agenda around about smart cities, mobility, and very soon to be launched a net zero piece. So we look at the city systems and assets. We look at the ecosystem and enterprise dynamics. And we look at the strategic capacity and ambition. And then we look at the various facts and stats and draw out data from this. And what we get when we look at the dashboard at a very high level, we can start picking out cities, and we can start looking across, we can start drawing patterns and doing a little bit of interesting analysis. So, but underneath this traffic light system, you then have the data, many, many layers of data that can be looked at, sliced and diced in many different ways. So I can look at it from the angle of a city. I can look at it from the angle of an academic organization. I can look at it from the angle of a government, local, national. I can look at it from the angle of industry. I can find out, is my city full of a certain type of technology company? Is it saturated? Are there not enough of that type of companies? Should we be doing more to support that sector of the industry? Are we spending money in that area? Is this city spending money in this area? Therefore, is there an opportunity to run programs that could have a high impact in that area? Is there an opportunity for, in Kyoto, is it spending money in a certain area? Is there maybe not as many companies in that area as should be in order to deliver on that? Is there an opportunity for companies from Tokyo to come across? Is there an opportunity for companies from the UK to come and partner and drive forward that part of the ecosystem? It opens up many interesting discussions that are very much evidence-based. And what's really interesting, it then allows us to start comparing cities. We can either compare city to city, we can look at groups of cities, we can look at a whole lot of cities. And it's really interesting because in the smart city space, if we take Asia, for instance, a lot of people would look at what they would class a leading smart city and maybe pick Singapore. And they might say, okay, how do we become like Singapore? But it's not like that. Singapore is a very fantastic example of the application of smart cities technology, innovation, also really smart people and systems driving it. But you can't just copy that. It doesn't work that way city-wise. You have to really understand the dynamics of the city to understand what your city yourself should be doing to really push forward and have the outcomes that you want. So if we pick a city like Ho Chi Minh City and we look at various areas that they want to push forward, we can then look around the region and we can find a similar city that maybe scores slightly higher in the matrix, and we can locate them on an interesting 3D model. And then we can start doing the analytics around, okay, what has Kuala Lumpur done? What has had the outcomes that Ho Chi Minh needs in order to improve its score and push itself forward? And then we can start looking at the group of cities in the region potentially, or similar peer cities around the world. We can start taking the mean, medians, averages. We can start really looking at where they score, how they compare, and then we can start pinpointing exact areas where the city, if it's not spending money, should be spending money or running programs. We can understand what types of programs they should be running, how they can tap into their local tech hubs and their local ecosystem to help push these pieces forward, and where there are partnership and collaboration opportunities, in this case with UK companies, with UK academic institutions, or with the UK government, to really deliver and push up these scores through some really interesting interventions that we can roadmap out, because we can take a peer city, we can look at a city that was in a similar situation, that deployed similar types of programs and had these sort of outcomes. Therefore, we can hypothesize that the similar could be done in this city. So it's a really interesting way of doing some gap analysis and doing some really interesting predictive work around about the data. It also allows us to bring up an interesting narrative around the city. What is the city? What does it look like? Where is it going? And where could it go? And that's a really interesting space for the innovator to look at. Now, the main thing I'm going to talk about today is a really interesting collaboration program. It's a program in Africa, developing market, and we're really pleased that we have a Japanese partner for this. SoftBank works with us on this program, and it's called Urban Links Africa. And Urban Links Africa is all about looking at the city space. So we did a bit of analysis and research, and we found across many African cities, the link between the city, the tech hub, and the innovators was broken or just not functioning. So a lot of cities were trying to solve their solutions by going to the large corporates or having large corporates sell at them. The city wasn't tapping into its wealth of really interesting innovation that was there on its doorstep, but just there was no mechanisms, there was no process, there was no understanding that both were there, and the opportunity was there as well. So this program was very much looking at kind of tapping into the UK's USP, which is collaboration and knowledge share. How could the UK work with these cities, work with these tech hubs, work with these innovators, really understand the challenges, and then build out solutions, both African and UK, to solve these city challenges. So Urban Links Africa, it was really, really ambitious project, looking at pure collaboration and looking at benefiting the indigenous ecosystems in South Africa and Kenya across 6 cities: Durban, Cape Town and Johannesburg, Nairobi, Mombasa and Kisumu. And as the project moves forward in time, we've got these observer cities as we look for them to learn, to grow, to become part of the network, and then to move on to deploy and be part of the current suite of programs we're running just now. So it's really, really interesting in terms of the African city engagement, the proof of concepts, the deployment-ready technology. And a lot of what we're doing is not simply taking a mature product to market. It's not a case of, here's some UK technology, smart city mobility, urban innovation solutions, and we should sell them into an African city. It's about helping the city understand the challenges that exist there, working with them to build up the capacity within the city so they can engage, so that they can really understand and work out what's the best way to solve these challenges. And then working with the tech hubs to understand that the city is a marketplace for the startups, for the innovators, for the SMEs in Africa, that often the procurement rules that are so challenging and difficult to navigate for small to mid-sized companies, how the procurement can be unlocked, what programs and processes can we put in place for the African cities to allow SMEs and startups to really engage with the city procurement space, which is essential because ultimately the city is a very big customer in every country. And often the city procurement is dominated by large corporates. The UK has a really, really interesting story to tell in this place. The Government Digital Services team in the Cabinet Office, many years ago, UK government spend on ICT was about 97, 98, 99%, all to large corporates. And then a really interesting program was put in place called the Government Digital Marketplace and the G-Cloud framework. And if you fast forward about 10 years, I think it's close to 47 or 48% of all UK government ICT spend now goes onto SMEs. And that's a phenomenal game changer in the startup, SME, innovator space, because government contracts, they're real sustainable contracts that can help these companies grow, they can help them reinvest, they can employ people in the city space and really turn the city into a real sustainable city that's got the right jobs and the right companies for the challenges that it faces today. So the UK's got a really great legacy in this space of helping the city engage with the tech hub, engage with the innovators and startups and SMEs. So we really wanted to take this knowledge sharing and collaborative kind of approach from the UK to Africa and work in this respect. And so Urban Links Africa, really in a nutshell, it's sponsored by UK Research and Innovation, which is kind of where innovation and academia sits in the UK. It's about an 18-month-long project, as I said, covers these countries. And the objective was really to facilitate a sustainable collaboration between the UK, South Africa, and Kenya. As I said, bringing together the cities, the tech ecosystems, and building equitable partnerships. So it's all about collaboration. We're not just about pushing forward the smart cities, mobility, and urban innovation ecosystem in the UK. We're there to do it around the world. And that's a really fantastic thing with the Catapult. It's a collaborative approach of what we do. All the projects we work in are based on a win-win situation with us and our partners and the people that work with us. And so the 7 city challenges that were kind of identified here and that we look at weren't a huge surprise. In Kenya, we're looking at stormwater drainage and urban flooding, solid waste management, traffic management and active mobility, wastewater management, and in South Africa, very much looking at resilience and informal settlements, urban mobility, and waste management and pollution in Durban. And so what we did, understanding the challenges that currently weren't being solved by the city and were recurring and had negative impacts on the society of the city, on the running of the city, on the budgeting of the city, how could we join the dots between the tech hub and the innovators in the UK and Africa and really develop solutions to solve these? The 5 key components of this program, it was very much about the city engagement. As I say, we do a lot in the area of capacity building, getting those proof of concepts and deployment ready technology. So a lot of the solutions we're working with here, they don't actually exist yet. We're getting the collaboration between the African and the UK partners and building out the solutions. Some of the solutions do exist, some of them are mature solutions, but it was very much the process and methodology we had in place was finding out how to get the right solution to solve the challenge. And then the city hub links across the UK and Africa is very much about peer learning between city leaders and tech hubs, joining up and creating sustainable partnerships. So once this project moves on and moves forward, that these great relationships that we build, they continue after we've moved on. And then there's market knowledge, market intelligence, we're really much looking at building up that the knowledge gained from this program and sharing it. It's everything that we work in this project is open source. It's disseminated. It's accessible to everybody because it's there to benefit everybody working in this space. We're pulling together a large business board and government forum where we're working with the UK Africa ecosystem on the project. And this is where we're very pleased that SoftBank sit and advise and are offering some great support in terms of supporting these really interesting, innovative partnerships that we're bringing about. And then obviously this is themed around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're aligning it and we're making sure that there's a real positive impact from the work that we're doing. And then this is just a quick idea in terms of the timescales of things. In terms of this project, is we're looking at closing the first stage of Urban Links Africa in March next year. And then Urban Links Africa 2 will be launching from April next year. Now, the project was originally designed to run for 18 months, and then COVID came along. And COVID stopped people getting on a plane, going and meeting. It stopped people taking the technology and actually physically demonstrating it on the ground. But as I keep coming back to, we're a centre of innovation. So rather than cancelling the project, rather than putting the project on hold, we looked at what sort of innovation can be deployed to make a project like this continue and possibly even turn this challenging situation to our advantage and unlock even more potential. So we developed a collaboration platform, which is a really, really interesting technology innovation. And it's aimed at replacing the face-to-face piece. It's a really interesting portal that allows every single player within the project to interact, to work as if they were in the same room. They can work through workout and breakout areas. They can run their own events. They can share knowledge, access knowledge, make requests. They can do all the things that they would be able to do, bar physically meeting and putting the technology on the ground, now digitally. And this has been a really interesting piece of work. And that's really allowed us to push this project through. It's allowed us to bring more partners on board, more solution providers on board, and really hopefully up the output of this first stage of the project. And that really tees things up so that when Urban Links Africa 2, the second stage of the project, kicks off, we'll be able to hit the ground running and really push forward with these demonstrators in the cities. So it's a really interesting project that we're running, and one I'm really happy that I'm pleased I was invited to come and speak to you about today. So I realise I've run through a lot of information. What I really hope to bring today was an idea that the UK has a really interesting and collaborative approach to the smart cities, mobility and urban innovation piece. That the UK is really focused on how do you objectively move towards the economy of tomorrow? How do you unlock the innovation within these sectors and what's needed? And that's why the Catapult Network was created. And that's kind of our mandate. Our mandate is to come and look and really support and create these win-win situations through really, really interesting projects. And that when we talk about smart cities and mobility, it's not tech-centric. It's not just putting a sensor on a wall. We view the smart city as a really interesting stack of interconnected pieces, and that we work across all levels of this stack. And as much of the technology that there's capacity building, there's people work, there's citizen design and input. It's a really interesting and it's a really challenging space, but it's a really interesting space to work in. I'm really pleased to come here and to learn from the other speakers today at the fantastic work that's going on in Japan. So with that, I will finish this presentation. If anybody has any questions, my email is at the bottom of the screen. You're very welcome to email me questions, comments. If you'd require any further information, I would be very, very happy to share it with you. So lastly, I would just like to thank the organisers for inviting us to the Kyoto Smart Cities Expo 2020. It's an absolutely fantastic city, fantastic place, fantastic things happening in the smart city space. I've been there many times myself. And a special thank you to you, the audience, for listening to this presentation. Thank you.